Listen now, and I will tell you a story that the elders whisper on quiet nights. A story about a girl whose beauty was so great that the entire valley bowed to her shadow. They called her Amara of the Riverlands, and from the moment she drew breath, the world could not look away. As a child, she was praised. As a woman, she was worshipped. But I must warn you, this is not a story about how beautiful she was. This is a story about what her beauty did to her heart. This is a story about the night when the sacred mirror showed her something far more terrifying than her own reflection. On the night of the moon festival, when the drums thunder like the heartbeat of the earth itself, everything changed. The torches blazed so bright you could see your shadow twice. Music filled the air. And then one scream shattered it all. The screams came first, then the confusion. The sacred mirror, a relic so old that no one could remember when it last was lifted, had been brought from the temple vault that night. It was polished until it gleamed like water under moonlight. The elders said this mirror did not reflect flesh. It reflected truth. The crowd gathered as they prepared to honor Amara. After all, who else deserved such an honor? She was the most beautiful in 7 valleys. Men had traveled for months just to glimpse her face. So when they lifted the mirror before her, the entire crowd fell silent. But not in awe, in horror. Where her face should have been, there was nothing. Just empty shimmer. Just air. The crowd stepped back as if she carried disease. Mothers pulled their children close. A child cried. And Amara, beautiful, confident, praiseworthy Amara, fell to her knees. The ground seemed to swallow her screams. By morning, the whispers had spread like fire through dry grass. The sacred mirror had shown Amara nothing. Not a scratch, not a blemish, but absolute emptiness. The elders gathered in the temple, speaking in voices so low that even the wind could not hear them. But I did. I was there, watching from the shadows as they consulted the old books, the ones written in languages that memory had forgotten. They spoke of the mirror's true nature. It was not made by human hands. It was shaped by the old spirits themselves, centuries before the valley was born. This mirror reflected not your face, but your heart. It showed what you truly were, beneath the skin, beyond the eyes, in the chambers where truth lives. If the mirror showed nothing where Amara's face should be, it meant something terrible. Her heart had been hollowed out. Pride had eaten it from the inside, slowly, day by day, until there was nothing left but empty space. The elders understood. This was not sickness. This was curse. They brought this truth to Amara gently, because even elders know how to be merciful. But mercy could not change what the mirror had revealed. Amara was given a choice: leave the valley before dawn or face exile forever. She did not argue. She did not beg. She simply rose, wrapped her cloak around her shoulders, and walked toward the forest. No one tried to stop her. Behind her, the valley she had ruled through beauty fell silent. She could feel their eyes on her back, even as she walked away. She replayed the moment over and over in her mind. The mirror lifted, the silence, the nothing where her face should be. All those years of praise. All those years of being told she was perfect. And for what? For this. She reached the river at the edge of the valley and knelt down, searching the water for her reflection. There it was, still beautiful, still perfect, still unchanged. But for how long? That was the question that followed her into the forest like a shadow that would never let go. Now, to understand what happened to Amara, you must understand Lena. Lena was born on the same day as Amara, in the same village, under the same stars. But while Amara was kissed by beauty from the moment of her birth, Lena was made quiet and plain. Her face was kind, but forgettable. Her voice was gentle, but easy to ignore. And yet, and this is important, Lena possessed something that all the beauty in the world could not buy. She had a faithful heart. From childhood, Lena followed Amara like a shadow follows light. She was there when Amara took her first steps. She was there when Amara spoke her first words. And she stayed there, through every season, as the world fell deeper and deeper in love with Amara's face. Lena never minded being unseen. She was content in the background, loving her friend with kind of love that asked for nothing in return. But love, Even the quietest love expects something basic. It expects to matter. And Amara had forgotten that Lena existed at all. As Amara grew more beautiful, she grew less kind. It happened slowly at first, so slowly that almost no one noticed. She would dismiss Lena's words as though they were not worth hearing. She would walk past her in the square without acknowledgement. When Lena offered gifts, fruits from her garden, cloth that she had woven, Amara would take them without gratitude, as if Lena were a servant sent by the earth itself. Then, one night at a gathering, everything broke. The village had come together to celebrate the harvest. They sat in a great circle, and as was tradition, each person shared a story. When Lena stood to speak, sharing a gentle tale her mother had taught her, Amara laughed. Not with her, but at her. She mocked the way Lena spoke, the slowness of her words, the simplicity of her story. The whole circle fell silent. And Lena, poor, faithful, forgotten Lena, sat back down and said nothing at all. That night, Lena walked alone to the river, the same river where Amara would later search for her reflection in desperation. Lena knelt at the water's edge and wept, not in anger, but in something deeper and more painful. It was a heartbreak of realizing that the person you loved more than anyone had never truly loved you back. She had given everything to a friendship that was one-sided, a mirror that only reflected one way. As her tears fell into the water, Lena whispered something that the elders would later say changed the course of the valley's fate. She did not curse Amara. She did not rage or demand revenge. Instead, she prayed. She asked the old spirits, the ones who live in the forest, who guard the roots of ancient trees, who remember every kindness and every cruelty. She asked them to show truth. She asked them to reveal what cannot be seen with ordinary eyes. She did not know that the spirits were listening. She did not know that her prayer would wake something far older than anyone alive. In the darkness of the forest, where the trees have rings wider than a man is tall, something stirred. The spirits heard Lena's prayer. But they did not come to curse Amara for being cruel. They came to test the truth of her heart. The old ones understood something that humans often forget, that beauty can hide emptiness, and that kindness can hide beneath a plain face. They decided that the sacred mirror, which had rested in shadow for generations, needed to wake again. That night, as the full moon rose, the mirror in the temple began to glow. The priest saw it and knew, without being told, that judgment was coming. The next morning, when the mirror was lifted to honor Amara at the moon festival, it was not showing spite. It was showing truth. The spirits had asked the mirror a simple question. Is this girl's heart as beautiful as her face? And the mirror had answered with silence. Days passed. Amara wandered deeper into the forest, moving away from the valley, away from the stares and whispers. The cloak she wore grew torn. Her perfect hair became tangled. The beauty that had opened every door in the world now meant nothing, because there was no one here to see it. There was only the forest and its ancient, watchful silence. On the third night, as she sat by a small fire, a figure emerged from between the trees. It was an old woman, or perhaps not a woman at all. Her face was veiled, and her eyes were like still water, reflecting everything but revealing nothing. She sat across from Amara, without asking permission. You are the girl from the valley, the veiled elder said. It was not a question. Amara nodded, too tired to lie. The one the mirror erased. Amara's voice broke. Why did it do that? I did nothing wrong. I was born beautiful. Is that a crime? The elder smiled sadly. Your face is missing, she said slowly, because your heart abandoned it long ago. Amara wanted to argue, but something in the elder's words reached into her chest and squeezed. The veiled woman explained the nature of the curse. When pride becomes so great that it swallows all kindness, the mirror, which sees what is true, takes away what the world worships most. It was not revenge. It was mathematics. It was balance. The curse would only deepen if Amara stayed hidden, nursing her anger and self-pity. But it could only be broken one way, by facing the one she had wronged, by speaking truth, by humbling the pride that hollowed her out. If you do not return, the elder warned, your face will fade completely. Within a moon cycle, not even you will recognize yourself in water. You'll become truly invisible, not just forgotten, but gone. Amara's hands trembled. And if I return? The elder's eyes glowed. Then you will learn whether your heart has anything left worth saving. Before Amara could ask another question, the elder vanished into the trees like mist. Amara did not sleep that night. She sat by the dying fire, watching the darkness consume the light, and made a choice that cost her more than any words can explain. She would return to the valley. She would face Lena. She would confess everything. But as dawn approached, she noticed something that made her blood freeze. Her reflection in the water of her morning cup had begun to blur. The edges of her face were becoming soft, unclear, like a painting left in the rain. She had perhaps days, maybe less. The curse was accelerating. Amara wrapped her cloak tight and began to walk back toward the valley she had abandoned. Every step felt like walking against a terrible wind. Her feet moved toward shame, toward exposure, toward humiliation far worse than the night at the Mirror Festival. But beneath the fear, something else was stirring. Something small but stubborn. It felt almost like hope, or perhaps it was simply the last flicker of a heart that remembered, long ago, what it meant to care for another person more than for itself. While Amara was lost in the forest, the valley had changed. When chaos surrounded Amara's disappearance, the whispers, the fear, the questions, Lena quietly stepped into the space that had been left empty. There was work to be done. The elderly needed care. The children needed guidance. The harvest needed tending. And Lena, who had spent her whole life in shadow, began to shine. Not loudly, not with the blazing certainty of beauty, but with the quiet, steady light of someone doing what needs to be done simply because it must be done. People began to notice her, not in the way they had noticed Amara, with gasps and bows, but in a deeper way. They noticed that when Lena was near, things improved. When she helped, burdens felt lighter. When she spoke, her words carried weight. The village began to trust her. More than that, they began to love her. 1 week after Amara vanished, the elders decided to test the sacred mirror again. They were curious. They needed to understand what the mirror would show now that the proud girl was gone. When they lifted it, the whole council fell silent. The mirror reflected the image of Lena, standing before it with quiet strength. But that was not the most shocking part. The mirror glowed. It actually glowed with a soft golden light that no one had ever witnessed before. This mirror, which had shown Amara as nothing, now showed Lena as everything. Not because she was perfect, but because she was true. The elders knelt before the mirror, and slowly, the rest of the village came to understand. Beauty was not what made a person worthy of respect. Truth was. Courage was. Kindness that asked nothing in return was. A new kind of leadership was being born in the valley, and its face was Lena's. It was on this day that Amara returned. She kept her hood deep over her face, pulling it low so that only darkness showed where her features should be. She moved through the village like a ghost, watching everything from the edges, trying to gather the courage to step forward. Amara expected to feel many things: shame, fear, anger. But what she felt was something different. She felt invisible. For the first time in her life, no one looked at her. No one turned their head as she passed. She was nothing. She was no one. And in a strange way, this was a mercy. It meant she could see the village truly, without the distortion of admiration clouding the view. She could see how Lena moved through the square with purpose. How people came to her with their problems. How Lena listened, truly listened, in a way that Amara never had. She could see what she had lost, not just in Lena's friendship, but in her own capacity to care. For 3 days, Amara watched from the shadows. She watched Lena comfort a woman who had lost her husband. She watched Lena teach a group of children to read. She watched Lena tend the sick with hands that were gentle and sure. And with each moment, Amara's heart, the hollow heart that the mirror had revealed, began to feel something like pain. Real pain. The kind of pain that comes with understanding. On the 4th night, Amara could bear it no longer. She found herself standing before the sacred mirror in the temple, though she had meant to stay away from it. Her hands shook as she pulled back her hood. She wanted to see what remained of her face. What looked back was a stranger. Not Amara the beautiful, not Amara the praised. Just a girl whose face was becoming transparent, whose edges were fading into nothing, and she broke. She sank to the ground and wept, not for her lost beauty, but for the lost friendship, the lost kindness, the lost chance to be good. In the silence of the temple, something impossible happened. The mirror began to whisper, not with a voice, but with words that appeared in Amara's mind like truth itself. Confession is heavier than shame, but it is the only weight that will save you. Amara understood. She rose on shaking legs and walked toward the center of the village square. It was morning. The sun was bright. Everyone could see her. As she walked, her hood fell away, and the people gasped. Where Amara's beautiful face had been, there was only a blur, beautiful but disappearing, like a dream upon waking. They recognized her anyway. The girl who had been cast out. The girl the mirror had erased. What happened next was silence. A terrible, waiting silence. Amara stood in the center of everyone's eyes, just as she had always dreamed. But this time, she was not beautiful. This time, she was honest. "I have come to confess," Amara said, her voice barely more than a whisper. But in the silence, it carried far. She told them everything. She spoke of her pride. She spoke of how praise had poisoned her. She spoke of how she had mocked Lena, laughed at her, made her feel worthless. She spoke of the nights when she knew she was being cruel, but did it anyway because her beauty made her feel powerful. She spoke of how she had lost the ability to see other people as real. They were only audiences for her reflection. The crowd listened. Some faces showed anger. Some showed pity. But Amara did not stop. She walked forward until she stood before Lena, and she said the words that she had been unable to say for years. "I am sorry. I was cruel. You did not deserve it. You were my truest friend, and I treated you like nothing. I do not ask for forgiveness. I only ask for you to know the truth." Lena's eyes filled with tears, and then she did something that no one expected. She walked toward Amara and took her hand. The crowd watched, waiting for Lena to turn away, to reject the girl who had rejected her. But Lena was not that kind of girl. She never had been. "I forgive you," Lena said simply. But forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. You must do the work of truly changing. You must rebuild what you broke, not with me, but within yourself. The sacred mirror in the center of the square began to glow, not gently this time. It blazed like the sun itself. The light was so bright that people had to shield their eyes. And in that light, something extraordinary happened. Amara gasped. Her face was returning, but not as it had been. Where there had been perfect, flawless beauty, there were now visible marks. Scars of her journey, lines of her suffering, the marks of her honesty. Her face was softer, humbler, more human than it had ever been. It was not as beautiful as before, but it was real. And as the crowd watched, they understood something that the wise ones among them had always known. That a face marked by truth is far more beautiful than a face unmarked by anything at all. The elder appeared then, stepping out from between the trees at the edge of the square. "This is not the end," she said, her voice old and young at the same time. "This is only a beginning." Amara's face was partially restored, but the curse was not yet fully broken. There was one more thing she had to do. The elder explained what had to happen. Amara must give up the one thing she valued most, the admiration of the village. She must step away from the place where people saw her. She must live in service, not in sight. She must spend one full year helping Lena in the work of caring for others, asking for no recognition, expecting no praise, seeking no eyes upon her face. "Can you do this?" the elder asked. Amara knew what this cost. After a lifetime of being seen, she was being asked to become invisible by choice. But she had tasted invisibility in the forest, and she had learned that it was not death. It was freedom. "I can," Amara said, and she meant it that very day. She put on a simple working dress and began to walk beside Lena through the village. For the first time in her life, Amara asked to be taught. She learned Lena's compassion. She learned how to listen without waiting for her turn to speak. She learned how to help without expecting gratitude. The year passed like a held breath. Amara worked in the homes of the sick. She taught children in the school. She helped with the harvest. She did all this with her face uncovered, marked by her mistakes and her growth, visible to anyone who cared to look. But slowly, something changed in how people saw her. They stopped looking for the perfect beauty they had once worshipped. Instead, they began to see the person. And that person, over time, became someone worth respecting, not because of how she looked, but because of who she truly was. On the final day of her year of service, Amara did something that shocked the entire valley. She stood before the sacred mirror and asked Lena to stand with her. "I want you to stand before the mirror as the chosen guide of our village," she said. "I was given beauty. You were given wisdom. Let the mirror reflect who we truly should be honoring." Lena tried to protest, but Amara's eyes held such certainty that she could not refuse. When both women stood before the mirror, something unprecedented happened. The mirror did not show one face. It showed both of them, equally clearly, each beautiful in their own way, one marked by truth, one radiant with quiet strength. And then the mirror began to change. Golden light filled its surface, and it expanded until the whole square was bathed in glow. The people understood. This was the mirror showing them not who was most beautiful, but who was most true. And in that moment, the mirror sealed itself. The light faded, the glow diminished, and the mirror returned to simple glass. It reflected only what it had always reflected before the curse: ordinary images, ordinary faces, ordinary truth. But it was no longer needed. The valley had learned what the mirror had come to teach. The judgment had ended. The test was complete. As darkness fell that evening, the elder walked back into the forest. She did not say goodbye. She did not explain where she was going. She simply moved between the trees and disappeared, the way she had appeared, like a character in a dream you can barely remember upon waking. But before she vanished, she whispered to Amara, "The mirror is no longer needed, because its lesson now lives in your heart. You will carry it forward, and one day, you will teach it to others who have forgotten. The world will praise beauty again, but you will remember that what is praised can fade in a moment. What the heart carries never does." The village was quiet that night. The moon festival was finished. The celebration was over. Life would resume, but it would never be the same. Amara understood this. She walked home not as the most beautiful woman in the valley, but as someone finally beginning to understand what it meant to be good. Seasons changed. Years unfolded. Amara lived a quiet life beside Lena, helping where help was needed, teaching children about kindness, tending to forgotten corners of the village that beauty had never bothered to notice. One afternoon, Amara stood at the same river where Lena had wept the night of her betrayal. She knelt to look at her reflection. The face that looked back was no longer perfect. It was marked by sun and age and honest work. But it was hers, truly, completely hers. The village began to tell a new kind of story. Not about the girl with the most beautiful face, but about the girl who lost her beauty and found herself. Children grew up hearing this tale, and they learned a lesson that no amount of praise could teach them. They learned that what the world praises today may be worthless tomorrow, but what you build in your heart, what you create through kindness and truth and sacrifice, that lasts forever. So listen to me when I tell you this, because it is the most important truth the mirror ever revealed. Your face may be beautiful or plain. That matters far less than you think. Your voice may be loud or quiet. That is not what determines your worth. What matters, what truly always, eternally matters, is the honesty of your heart. Amara learned this lesson when her beautiful face disappeared into nothing. But you do not have to wait for the mirror to teach you. You can ask yourself today, what would the mirror show if it looked at me? What would it see beneath the mask? And more importantly, are you willing to change what it finds? The Valley of Amara never forgot, and neither should you, because somewhere in the quiet places between the trees, the old spirits are still watching, and they see every act of kindness. They witness every moment of true courage, and they remember always those who choose truth over beauty, love over pride, and the slow, difficult work of becoming good.